Well, hello, welcome everybody to our GSA Acquisition Policy Federal Advisory Committee meeting. Here we are in September, and just last time we met was back in May. And as a full committee, the work has definitely continued on. So we have a special meeting today. We're going to spend time discussing the proposed FAR rule on sustainable procurement, which is right up our alley here for the committee. And so be happy about that. Before I pass it over to Troy, our chair, I wanted to just go over a couple of things. If you're a public attendee, welcome. I'll ask you to go ahead and keep your cameras and stay muted throughout the duration of our meeting. We will have an opportunity for public comment later on. If you're a member, please go ahead and open up the camera if it is possible. That would be great. And we'll make sure that we have everyone accounted for. So Troy, I'll pass it on to you for some opening remarks. Troy is our illustrious GAP FAC chair.
Well, thank you, Boris, and thank you everyone for being here today. It's nice to be here. I'll say this is the first public meeting that we've had since May, but there's been a full committee, but our subcommittees have been hard at work and chugging away on lots of different issues, and we expect to be reconvening in the fall to roll up some other recommendations as well. So just FYI for those of you in the viewing public. But I'm especially pleased to be here today really to talk about this FAR rule that relates to sustainable procurement. We have three subcommittees in our advisory committee here. We have one on policy and practice, which just is focused on making sure that rules encourage innovation and streamline the acquisition process. We have an acquisition workforce subcommittee that talks about making it easier for the acquisition workforce to understand all the responsibilities that they have to carry out as they engage in procurements. We have an industry partnership subcommittee, which is all about trying, on the one hand, to also help our industry partners understand the requirements and needs of the government, but then also just make it easier for them to engage with the government. So the FAR rule that's been put out called Sustainable Procurement, it's pretty much a rewrite of FAR Part 23. It hits on all those areas. And so what we're here today to discuss is weighing in officially as a FACA committee to be in support of the, I think, very common sense rewrite of this rule that they're undertaking. And to then make some practical suggestions as to the things that the government is going to have to think about going forward to help reinforce this and other things to come under FAR Part 23. So that's my broad opening. And Boris, I'll turn it back to you to do what we need to do the roll call, et cetera.
Yeah, well, thank you, Troy. And so thanks again. And to introduce myself, so I'm Boris Arratia, and I am the designated federal officer for the GAP FAC. I also have my colleague, Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Good day, everyone. Stephanie Hardison, Deputy Designated Federal Officer for GAP FAC.
Thank you, Stephanie. And so we wanted to, if you go to the next slide, just to reset, we are very fortunate to be operating under the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which has been around. We celebrated 50 years just about a year ago now. And we are working with members of this committee from different sectors of our economy. They have come to provide their expertise and offer that to GSA, advice to GSA in a way that's transparent, objective, as we're doing today, where we have opened up our meetings to the public. We have a very active website as well, which you are more than welcome to go and peruse our past work. And this is, again, part of a longstanding tradition of being able to do this work in a manner that is transparent, but also bringing the best and brightest minds to deal with the complex issues that the federal government works through. So a little bit on the agenda before we get started. If we go to the next slide. as Troy said, we are going to be discussing comments on a FAR rule that deals with sustainable procurement. The committee has been working in all aspects of federal procurement in terms of sustainability. And this particular rule has a lot of things that encompass the work and the focus areas that this committee has had. So we will have the opportunity to, as a full committee, provide comments to GSA, to the FAR Council, excuse me. These are comments that are going to go to the FAR Council. The rule is open right now for federal, it's through the Federal Register, and it's open for anyone to provide comments. We are also then going to take a vote after we go through some review of comments and discussions, and then after that, we will close the meeting. So this is a little shorter than our typical meetings, as we're taking up these very special costs. And as Troy said, this is a really great opportunity for the committee to weigh in on something that has a massive impact on the federal procurement space. So the next thing I want to do, if we go to the next slides, I want to do a roll call of our members. And I'll just say before I do that, if you are participating as a public attendee or if you're not a member, this is again not, this is a piece where you can definitely remain on mute and keep your video off as well. But we're going to go ahead and take a roll call, and I'm going to start calling the names. So I'm going to start with Farad Ali. Okay, and if you are, just go ahead and mute yourself and say present, so we can go ahead and record you. Denise Bailey. Okay, Gail Bassett. Luke Bassis.
Here.
All right. Richard Buttel.
Present.
Okay. Leslie Cordes. Daryl Daniels.
Present.
Nicole Darnell.
Present.
Antonio Das.
Here.
Mark Hayden.
Present.
Susan Lawrence Fisher. Mamie Mallory.
Present.
Okay. David Malone.
Here.
Daryl McKissack. Amlan Mukherjee.
Present.
Jenny Romer. Anne Run.
Present.
Steve Schooner.
Present.
Kristen Siever.
Present.
Stacy Smedley. Nigel Stevens. Clyde Thompson. Anish Tilak.
Present.
Okay, Keith Tillage.
Here.
David Wagger.
Present.
And Kimberly Wise. All right, so let me see, take a count here. We have and then we also have Troy Cribb. And I saw Troy.
I'm here.
And Cassius Butts.
And Cassie.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Excellent. So we have a quorum, and so we will go ahead and continue our meeting. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to now turn it over to Troy to begin the discussion on the comments to the FAR rule, and then we'll take it from there. Troy, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here today. Yeah, as I say, I think we're excited about this FAR rule. It really speaks to the mission of all three of our subcommittees and the work that they've been doing. I think first and foremost, I think that FAR Part 23 was in danger of kind of becoming like the messy closet off my room here that you can't see, is like throwing stuff in. And this does, first and foremost, a really important job of reserving it for sustainability issues. And that is incredibly important. It may seem like a small thing, but it's not. The business community needs to know, like, where do you go to know what the government is thinking? The acquisition workforce needs to know, where do you go to what everybody is thinking on this? And it really reinforces the importance of sustainability in the role of federal acquisition. So that's just number one. Along those lines, there are just some extraneous provisions that have been removed to other parts of the FAR, and not to say that they're not important, they are, but again, like reorganizing this just around sustainable procurement is incredibly important as messaging and education. The way that the previous rule was written was not consistent as to different requirements or preferences in the government that were referenced, and this rewrites the whole rule in a way that is so much more explainable. Again, we've talked a lot in our committee and especially at subcommittee levels about the importance of just making things easier for industry and the acquisition workforce to understand. And this whole rewrite of the rule really does that in a way that I think is really powerful. So that's great. And also does it in a way that incorporates references to what regulations you need to go to, what lead agency implementing information do you need to go to. It's really just a whole helpful rewrite that makes it so much more user-friendly for industry and the acquisition workforce, corresponding with this kind of like a new omnibus contract clause that helps agencies communicate requirements for sustainable products. And again, that reflects like the latest policy that it is the policy of the government that we're trying to the maximum extent possible try to acquire goods and services that are sustainable. And finally, obviously, like, construction, we often say like the government's the largest landlord and purchaser for that matter, but some very specific things here to update for construction and architect engineering contracts, updating that all here. So I think the first and foremost recommendation here for us to consider as a committee is an endorsement of the proposed rule here. And then we have some, Boris, I don't know if you wanted us to pause here and reflect on that. We have some just common sense suggestions for implementation, in particular from our acquisition workforce subcommittee that Nicole and Ann can talk about. But I guess I'll just pause here to see if anybody has any comments or suggestions for what we've talked about so far.
Yeah, this would be a good time to just pass a discussion on this portion of the comments to see if any of the members have any comments here. And you can come up here if you have any thoughts or anything you wanted to add in the conversation here.
Yeah, and I'll just say, having been in government prior to my current position for a long time, it's a lot of work just to go back and rework and make things plainer in English for people to make plain explanations of things that have been in place for a long time. A lot of this has been in place for a long time. but there hasn't been a consistent way of describing it and communicating it, and that's what this rewrite does. And so that's honestly hard to do, because when you're in government, you're always being pushed to like do the next thing. This is really significant to go back and having the FAR Council rewrite this in a way that that really makes it so much clearer for all the stakeholders as to what's involved. So kudos to them for doing that. And I think that's one reason like we're meeting here today, is just to really provide backing to helping us make all of these requirements more understandable.
All right, if there's no comments here, we can go to the next section. Yeah, and then I'd like to invite Nicole and Ann for pulling this discussion here, kind of having a conversation on this piece of the comments.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Boris. And Ann, I hope you jump in at any time. This part of our recommendation, it's really looking towards the future. What are next steps that we see on the horizon? This is less a comment about the specific rules as currently written, but thinking ahead to challenges. And we focus specifically on the acquisition workforce and challenges facing the workforce as they implement the proposed rule. It's an outgrowth of discussions that we've been having in our subcommittee meetings, and thinking through how this does connect with the acquisition worker, as I mentioned. We also were quite mindful of the charge of the GAP FAC subgroup that was focused on the FAR recommendations, trying to not be overly prescriptive and focus this at a high level so that the full committee could get behind it. So our recommendation is quite simple. It's to encourage GSA to develop and implement a plan to establish stronger federal data standards and protocols for ecolabel certifications. It's our understanding that this is going to require cross-agency coordination. So designating a convener, our recommendation is that's GSA to be the convener. Makes a lot of sense. And while the FAR Council itself doesn't actively play a role in this conversation, we are recommending that the council encourage agency leaders to work together to address the different problems that we identify at a very high level within the recommendations. In our subcommittee conversations with different individuals within GSA, they provided us context for 4 high-level problems that we think should be tackled within that cross-agency conversation. But really, this is about figuring out a mechanism to get those conversations moving forward.
Not much more to add there, Nicole. I will say, you know, we acknowledge that GSA has done a lot of good work in this area already. There's good work underway, and it was clear from speaking to a panel of professionals across GSA that touch on different functional areas, green buildings, transportation, acquisition, who all in some way have a leadership role around the green tools in use across the government, that there's more work that needs to be done. So this is really an attempt to keep it a very high level, just sort of calling out some themes that we heard, and recognizing that this is not proposed regulatory changes, but rather just suggested actions that need to happen outside the regulatory process to support the acquisition workforce.
And so we'll open it up for comments from the members. Any insights, things you want to add to the conversation, both in this and then the previous slide as well. Just want to go ahead and give you an opportunity to react to this. Okay, Troy, any other comments before we continue?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Boris. And to also to Stephanie and David and Skylar, and David especially, to you. You kept us on track while others were out. Really appreciate it. That's our GSA team who keeps us dotting the I's and crossing the T's and getting the communications out. So thank you so much. Yeah, I just also want to say thank you to some folks who just were helping to brainstorm: Nicole, Rich, Leslie, Luke, Mark, and hope I'm not missing anybody, but thank you so much for being willing to brainstorm on this. I think we have a pretty straightforward path here of endorsing an approach that is really common sense. And by all means, this is not to say we don't have anything else to say about FAR Part 23 or anything else in the FAR. We as a committee will be delving into a lot of different issues where we might be recommending additional changes here or elsewhere. But this seems like a really good moment for the FAR Council to go ahead and moving forward with just like a common sense rewrite of this part. So we kind of felt like based on what I was picking up from other members of the committee, is like we should just move forward and weigh in with a thank you and endorsement of moving forward, plus with the practical suggestions that Nicole and Ann just laid out on behalf of the acquisition workforce that they also will be digging into further. So I guess I'll leave it at there just to see if anybody has any other substantive comments.
Just for the group, I think it was important, and we agree it's important to acknowledge the work done as another logical progressive step, and that I think everybody that's involved in this issue and challenge understands that it's going to take a lot of progressive steps by many parties to continue to move the ball forward. So yeah. I'm happy that we're acknowledging that effort and progress on their part.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kristen. If not seeing any other comments, so Dave, if you want to stop sharing the screens, what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and proceed to take a vote for the members. And the way, so we're voting on moving forward with a statement of support as Troy described, and then also in addition to the statement of support for the FAR rule, a set of future considerations, which Nicole and Ann described and talked through, which really came out of the insights that they've been able to gather from talking to many experts over the last several months. So I think it's going to be helpful to put that out there. That work, I would say, continues as part of the committee work. So there's definitely a lot more research happening on this field of data, because that's something that we've been able to uncover. So we are going to go ahead and take a vote, and the process that we're going to follow now is going to be, we've done this before using the chat, so we're going to do the same for all of the GAP FAC members. And I see we've had a couple of members join here during the conversation. So if you're a GAP FAC member, what I'm going to ask you to do is in the chat window, I'm going to give you a few minutes here to go ahead and vote in favor by saying yes, just put in the chat. Or if you oppose, you say no, and then we're going to count the votes at the end. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to give you time for all of the GAP FAC members only to place a vote in the chat. And then I'm going to just wait a little bit here, making sure we're giving you the opportunity. So this is a time for just GAP FAC members to place a vote. And then Dave, I'm gonna ask you to count here. Let's see. Just make sure.
I have
Okay,
16 yeses, Boris.
16 yeses, okay. And you're still gonna leave it open for a little bit longer here, just in case anybody still thinking about it, but just give it maybe another minute.
This is Mamie. I'm yes. I'm not sure I'm participating correctly in this chat.
Okay. Maybe we're gonna make sure we record your vote. So I don't see the chat, but we'll go ahead and
I
record
don't
your
see the
vote.
send P.
Yeah. It's captured.
Okay, we got you. Okay, thank you, Mamie. All righty. Great, so we have, yep, we got 17 votes, adding Mamie. So we have then approved to move forward with the comments to the FAR Council. And as far as some closing remarks, I wanted to bring Troy back to sort of give some closing remarks. And then
Yeah,
before
thanks,
that, however,
Boris,
before I do that,
Yeah,
we
we should
need
see if any of the public members want to
yes,
weigh in.
yes, almost forgot, thank you. So we're going to open it up for public members. We give, I think we allow 5 minutes, but we're running ahead of our schedule. So 5 to 10 minutes and just open it up right now. There's 2 ways you can comment. You can drop something on the chat, or if you want to go off of mute and open your camera, if you like, you're also welcome to make any comments about the discussions we just had. And open to anyone who's not on the committee at this point. Okay, so I will take silence as indication that there is no public comments. However, you are always more than welcome to connect with us via our email address, gapfac@gsa.gov, which we're gonna drop on the final slide here in our presentation. But with that said, then I'm gonna bring it back to Troy to give us some closing remarks, and then I'll have a couple more closing comments.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Boris. And again, thank you all for participating today and putting eyes on this FAR rule. Again, I think it's something that helps move the ball towards all the mission statements that we've laid out for all 3 of our subcommittees in the GAP FAC. I wish I didn't have to like flag this other issue, but I have to. As you know, the discussions in Congress about appropriations are hour to hour. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm in conversation with Boris and Stephanie about like what might happen if there is a government shutdown, and we'll try to keep you posted on what that means for our committee and whether we were able to do anything during the shutdown. I will just speak from the heart a little bit here. I've been in this town a long time. I actually came to town working for a Democrat who was a fiscal hawk and kind of sounding the alarm about our budget deficits. So I very much in my heart have in mind, like, our country needs to do something about this. I've worked for decades with people across the political spectrum, from the most liberal to the most conservative, and I have friends across the spectrum, and I respect them and I love them. And I think that's such a healthy debate for our country to have about what the role of our government is and the size of it. the one thing I kind of cannot, and this is just me speaking, obviously we haven't talked about this as a committee, but just me speaking personally, the one thing I can't abide for is shutting down the government. The American people pay their taxes in April and they expect the government to work. And it's such a disservice to them when we don't work. And then, you know, they're like tough issues to work out. But the relevance for our committee here is that it's on a lot of levels. The government depends on contractors for a lot of goods and services, obviously over, you know, $600 billion a year. That whole community is affected by a shutdown. We're always talking about trying to attract new entrants, small businesses, new innovative businesses. Who wants to go to have a contract with the government, the largest purchaser in the world of goods and services, if they're going to say, oh, I might not be able to pay you, or we're going out for this contract, but maybe it might not happen. That is the worst thing for everything that we want and that we've been talking about here as a committee. So I just wanted to flag this. We're waiting to hear from the GSA team, like our committee as a whole may be affected by what we can do, but B, you know, we were set up to talk about the greatest challenges to federal acquisition, and we were asked to talk about you know, climate and sustainability as a focus, but our mandate is broader. And I do think that if there's a shutdown, there will be so much of adverse consequences to the contracting community, to the American people in turn, as a consequence that that we should be looking at. So I just wanted to flag that as, if this does happen, you know, potential area for us to be looking at and communicating, you know, really the damage to the American people that often goes unspoken, because there's not such a great understanding of, you know, how the appropriations kind of flow down and the impact on the American people. So just wanted to flag that here for both our own operations, but as potential discussion for the group.
No, thank you, Troy. I really appreciate that. And we'll definitely coordinate with our committee management officer just to make sure we have guidance as to what we will need to do in an event of a shutdown. But I do appreciate your comments here. Really very timely, very, very relevant indeed. Yes, indeed. I wanted to say, Dana, thank you for everyone that participated today. I want to thank our members for, as you said, Troy, really coming together in this very important issue. I know we're busy, and we are looking at our next full committee meeting in November 16th. So that's what tentatively we're planning. We will definitely have more information on the Federal Register once we firm that up. But we are in the process of continuing discussions at the subcommittee level. If you're a member of the public, I'll encourage you to visit our site. And Dave, if you want to put that slide back towards the end of the deck where we have our contact information. So you can visit our site and you can register for meetings. We have 3 meetings next week for our subcommittees. We have acquisition workforce on Tuesday, industry partnerships on Wednesday, and then policy and practice on Thursday. So you're welcome to visit our site, and you can sign up to attend those meetings. We are investigating a lot of really interesting topics for GSA, but also the federal government as a whole. Going forward, we have then approved the proposed comments. So we will be circulating a document with all of you, consolidating all the comments. Were finalized. The due date for the Federal Register notice on the SPAR rule is October 2nd. So we will make sure that the comments go in before October 2nd, and it will definitely present a very cohesive and strong message from the GAP FAC to the FAR Council as to the usefulness of the rule, and then it definitely areas to consider in the future. So we are all set here, and I wanted to give the opportunity to Stephanie Hardison, to my deputy designated federal officer, to see if there's anything else that I may have forgotten or anything else you wanted to add, Stephanie. Wanted to give you that opportunity, put you on the spot. Yeah.
Thank you, Boris. I don't have any thing at this time. Just like to thank everyone for joining us today. Just want to reiterate what Boris has already stressed. We do have 3 public committee meetings next week. And we have wonderful guests, speakers that attend those meetings as well. So we asked if you could, just be on the lookout for when those meetings are announced each month. Maybe some speakers of interest to you guys. And your input is always welcome during these sessions as well. But that's all I have. Thank you, Boris.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just say the GAP FAC at gsa.gov is the best way to communicate with us via email. And whether you have comments or anything else you want to share with us, we will definitely be glad to take a look at those. Anything else, Troy or Cassius? Troy, give you the last word. If you had anything else?
No, I think not right now. Thank you so much. And again, Boris, Stephanie, David, Skylar, thank you so much for keeping us on track here with all the logistics of setting this up.
Ready. Well, thank you.
Thank you again, Boris. I appreciate being able to be on and hearing everyone's time to say thank you again.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for making time today for this important meeting. And then at this time, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we can go ahead and stop the recording.